So let's go into part 2, setting SMART goals. This is the key to effective goal setting. And you may have heard this acronym before, you may have used it before, but I'm going to go through it in detail. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat as we go. So SMART goals are a proven framework for setting goals that are clear, focused, and attainable. Okay. And I'm going to break down each of the acronyms so you're going to understand the importance of each of the elements. Okay. So the S is specific, clear and well-defined goals. M is measurable, quantifiable, and trackable goals. A is achievable, realistic, and within reach. Relevant is align with your overall vision and values. Make sure that your goals are relevant to you, right? And time-bound, specific, deadline, or timeline. So let's talk about specific goals. So specific goals provide clarity and direction. These are examples like increase monthly revenue by 20%. Complete a 10K run in under 50 minutes. My personal one was exceed my monthly income by $500 by September so I can go full-time with my coaching business, right? It's very specific. It's not like, I want to make more money, or I want to attract more clients, or I want to start a business, or, you know, I want to leave my job at some point. Specifically, what do you want, right? Because if it's a wishy-washy goal that's not specific, it's very hard to, like, it doesn't evoke a lot of emotion, right? It doesn't evoke a lot of motivation. Because when I say, for example, my personal goal was exceed my monthly income by $500, I know exactly what that is. Like I even, I initially, when I took the job, I mean, this is very specific, obviously, but when I took the job, I made sure that I was only applying for jobs that were going to cover my financial needs, because what I had done before I even applied for jobs was I broke down, okay, what are our expenses? How much money do we need? How does that translate into income? What do I need to be bringing in? And then I applied for jobs that fit that description, right? Like I said, I used scripting to manifest the perfect job for me. And then, so because I knew that that income that I was already bringing in could support my family financially, I knew that an extra $500 a month would be more than enough. And it would enable me to get my husband behind me leaving my job, because he was still, at this point when I set this goal, still a little bit like, if I want that to happen, you know what I mean? So it covered a couple of bases at once. So you want to look at your dreams and your aspirations you wrote down and ask yourself, is this specific? Like, do I know exactly what this is, or is it still a little bit too wishy-washy? Okay. And measurable. The measurable goal allows you to track progress and evaluate success. Okay. You want to have some number in there usually that you can measure against. Okay. So for example, would be save $5,000 by the end of the year, or publish 3 articles per month, or grow my Facebook group by 10% per month. Like, you would be able to know, you would know the starting point and you would know the end point. Now, if your goal is something like, you really just, your main focus right now is really, I just want to feel more at peace. I just want to be happier. I just want to feel more motivated to do anything. Like maybe you're struggling with anxiety or depression, or just like a general feeling of not enoughness, which, I mean, that's a very common thing. In that case, your measurable goal could be, you could start with, say, a wheel of life exercise. And I do this in pretty much all of my programs that involve some kind of personal growth, which is pretty much all of them, especially in Be Here Now. We start with a wheel of life exercise where you look at all the areas of your life. There's usually, you can Google it. There's usually between 6 and 10, like pieces of the pie. And the idea is you rate each one on a scale of 1 to 10 on your level of satisfaction. So if you were measuring an intangible goal like that, like say you just wanted to feel more at peace in general, or let's say I want to focus more time on my personal development. Well, even that you could measure that by spending, a half an hour a day reading personal development books or whatever. But let's say it's a totally intangible goal. You could then start by filling out a wheel of life, for example, and figuring out what area you want to focus on. And then every so often you could check back in, reevaluate on that same wheel of life and see if the rating has improved at all. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So achievable goals. You want to choose achievable goals that are realistic and within your capabilities. Okay, some examples of this would be complete a certification course in 6 months. Of course, now this would be a specific certification course, not just a certification course, but acquire 10 new clients in a quarter, host 1 live launch event per quarter, right? Something that you know you can get behind. Now, this is not about shrinking yourself back down to goals that you feel comfortable with. This is about making sure that you have the capacity, the capabilities, and the time to be able to dedicate to these goals. So if you have a really big goal that is going to, not necessarily take a long time, but there's a lot of moving parts, this is where you want to break it down and go, okay, well, let's work backwards. This is the big goal. This is what it looks like in the grand scheme of things. So how can I break that down? And we'll talk about this more later. How can I break that down so that I have achievable goals within that big goal, right? So I'm going to share another personal example quickly here. So when this is how I landed on 500 extra a month. If anybody's wondering how I landed on the goal of 500 in excess of my income, yes, not only was it, I need to, I want to make a little more than my take-home income, but the actual catalyst for that conversation with myself was, if you are in the coaching space, if you are a coach yourself, you have probably seen for years now people preaching that $10,000 months are like the mark of a good coach. Like, until you've made $10,000 in a month, you're not really successful, and all kinds of bullshit like that. So I fed into that. I thought initially my goal was I'm making $10,000 a month. And well, I realized I had a lot of resistance to that, because I was like, well, I've never had $10,000 in one time, like, ever. Not in an account, not given to me. I've never earned that much. I've never had a bonus that big. Like, I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what that version of me is. Like, so I was resisting it, but I didn't realize it. So then I remember it like it was yesterday. I was standing in my living room and I had this epiphany. I was like, well, shit, like, to get to 10,000, I have to get to 1,000 first, and 2,000 and 3,000. And like, you got to start somewhere. Cause at that point I still had no clients, right? I was making no money in my business. I had no clients. So I was like, okay, well, I already know I'm an energetic match to receive $3,000 a month, right? Because remember, if I'm going to go woo woo here for a second, we can only receive what we're an energetic match for. And so the amount of money you're an energetic match for right now might be your 9-to-5 income, but it's not because of your 9-to-5 income. It's because that's what you're an energetic match for. So I knew that. And I was like, okay, well, I obviously I'm an energetic match for $3,000. I can get behind the fact that I'm an energetic match for $3,000. And right now it's just coming through my job, but I can get behind the fact that it can come through somewhere else. So I'm going to go for 500 more than that, because that would, like I was saying earlier, would solidify my ability to leave my job and make everybody comfortable and all this stuff. And I thought, that's a stepping stone on the way to $10,000, but it's more achievable to me. It feels more realistic and within my capabilities, because I'm already an energetic match for that. So now all I have to do, like I was saying, is get behind the fact that it can come from somewhere else. Okay, I hope that makes sense, right? So it's not about, like, I really don't like the word realistic. Anybody who knows me knows that. I really don't like the word realistic. But when it comes to things like this kind of goal setting, it's important that you do keep your goals within what you think is actually achievable. Like, for example, if you want to grow a YouTube channel and you've never made one YouTube video in your entire life, and you think you're going to be able to make 7 YouTube videos a week, that's probably not realistic. Like, let's start with like 1 YouTube video a week. You know what I'm saying? 1, and like master recording and getting your templates all right, and getting the right SEO and keywords and hashtags and things. And like, let's master on, how to use YouTube before we try to go and record 7 in a week. I mean, I'm not saying you can't record 7 in a week. I'm just saying it's not really realistic to go from 0 to 1,000, right? Another example, if you want to start a 2-hour morning routine, you currently get up at 9, you want to start a 2-hour morning routine, you've never had a morning routine, and all of a sudden you think you're going to be able to get up at 7 and bang out this whole 2-hour routine. I don't know how realistic that is, right? Because your body is programmed to get up at 9. So what most people do is they try to go all or nothing, and they try to get up at 7, and then they end up hitting snooze for 2 hours. When really what would be more realistic would be to set smaller goals of, okay, I'm going to start getting up at 8:45, and I'm going to add in, I'm going to read for 15 minutes, or I'm going to just meditate in bed, right? And then, a week or two, okay, now I'm going to get up at 8:30, right? And that's, I mean, now we're talking about breaking goals down, which we're going to talk about more in a minute, but I hope that makes sense when I'm talking about realistic goals within your capabilities. You want to really consider how much time you have to work on your goals, what your schedule is already packed with, what kind of life you want to be living. Like, you also have to remember that the energy you create from now is the energy you project into the future. So if you want to create a business where you're only working 3 to 4 hours a day, and most of the time you're doing what you want to do and you're planning your business around your life, but to do that, you think you have to work like 20 hours a day and not have any fun at all you're doing is projecting that energy into the future, right? So, I mean, there's a happy medium where you have to really become the version of you who you want to be. And that's a lot of what we do in Be Here Now, Be Her Now, right? Is become that version of who you want to be, who's already achieved the goals, and kind of bridge the gap between the two, right? But so achievable goals, you want to be realistic within your capabilities. You know that you can complete a certification within 6 months. You know that you could acquire 10 new clients in a quarter. You know that you could host 1 live launch in a quarter. If you're a coach or a course creator or whatever, you know that you could do that. That's totally realistic, right? And the goal should be relevant. This is something that's so important that so many people lose sight of, is the goals should align with your overall vision and priorities. Okay, like for example, launch an eco-friendly product line, or improve customer satisfaction ratings by 10%, or create an automated sales process that allows me more time away from my computer while still making an impact, right? So many people don't take the time to sit down and go, to really evaluate what their values are. What do you value? For me, I've realized the hard way that something I really value is peace. And so relying solely on a business structure that requires me to launch live over and over and over again does not allow me to feel that peace that I value, right? Because I'm constantly in hustle mode. So for me, creating an automated sales process that allows me more time away from my computer while still making an impact is very important to me. And it's very aligned with my overall vision and priorities, because my priorities are my family. I live in Nicaragua. I am literally living the dream. I live on vacation. I want to take advantage of that, right? So I need to have a sales process and a business structure that supports the vision I have and the priorities I have for spending time with my family and having a good time and enjoying my life, right? And so one of the best ways I can embody what I teach is to create a business structure that doesn't have me, a slave to my computer constantly. So make sure that your goals are relevant to your vision. This is something else that I realized actually as we were selling all of our things and packing up to move here from Canada, is that the vision that I thought I wanted and the vision that I was manifesting, I realized it hadn't manifested. Not because I'm not good at manifesting. I'm very good at manifesting. It wasn't unfolding because my subconscious and my conscious were at conflict with each other, because what I thought I wanted was not actually what I wanted. It's what I thought I should want, because I was watching all these other coaches say, how successful they were and flashing their luxury this and their luxury that and their Beverly Hills this and their, Mercedes that and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I was comparing. I'll be very honest. I was comparing with all these people and thinking that I wasn't doing a good job. And I thought, well, what kind of fraud am I to be talking about manifesting your best life when I can't manifest my best life? But what I realized was I wasn't manifesting it because it wasn't actually my best life. I was unconsciously trying to manifest somebody else's best life, right? My best life is a life where I get to spend time with my family and that my business supports me whether I'm working or not. You know, my best life is being out at the beach with my family all day and coming home to unexpected sales. But so I need to set up an automated sales process to have that happen, right? So this is why it's important to really look at your vision, your values, and make sure that your goals align with those things, and not because somebody else said that to be considered successful, it needs to look this way. No, that's a follower mentality. If you're a leader, which I'm sure you are, because I don't really attract people who aren't leaders. If you're a leader, you want to create whatever your vision is, right? That's part of your message. That's part of what's going to attract your people to you if you are destined to create your own business, right? Which again, I'm probably pretty sure that you are, given that you're here. I attract light workers. I attract, purpose activators. I attract people who have a message to share, so by creating goals that are relevant to your vision and executing on them, you can help your people who are going to be previous versions of you do the same, because you will have lived it already. Okay. And you want these goals to be time bound, right? Because time bound goals provide a sense of urgency and focus. So examples of this would be: write a book within 1 year, complete a home renovation project by September, replace my income with coaching clients and course sales by December, for example, right? Or mine was replace my income plus $500 by September, right? Now, the time-bound thing is a tricky one, because sometimes it creates a lot of resistance in us, and then we start to kind of retreat on ourselves. But this is why this whole SMART acronym is so important, because it allows you to truck forward, right? Instead of getting up in your head about it, you're creating action plan that allows you to execute on this. Okay. So the time bound part of your goal, you want to make sure is enough time that it's realistic that it be completed. Like, write a book within 1 year. It's not very likely you're going to write a whole book in 1 month. I mean, it's absolutely possible. But it's not necessarily realistic, right? And so you want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure by failure, I mean being too hard on yourself and thinking, well, I didn't hit my goal by this day, so I'm a loser. I didn't make it. That's not what I mean. And this is why I like to plan in 90-day increments, because I feel like 90 days is enough time that you can get behind things actually moving forward and propelling. Like, it's 90 days is about 12 or 13 weeks. It's 3 months. Like, you can get behind things actually moving, but it's a short enough time that you don't really have time to goof around and not get to work. Like, you do have to start executing immediately if you want to see results in 90 days, right? But I also like to plan out whole years as well, just to kind of get an overall picture. Like, the other day, I actually sat down as a result of the 21-day Pursue Your Dreams and Goals challenge. I sat down and I actually mapped out all of 2024, all of my launches, when I was going to promote it, what I was going to promote, how many times I was going to promote each thing. And that felt really, really good. And then I'm going to go back and lay out the action plans for all of these things, right? And of course, one of my other goals, since we're talking about goals, is because I'm going to launch the same thing multiple times over the year. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to, the first time I do it, create a process where the next time I do it, I can just build on what I've already done. I can use the templates. I can reuse the same content even, right? So as time goes on, it gets easier and easier and easier. And then by the end, I'm not really launching anymore. I'm just re-promoting the same thing with the same content. I'm just kind of rescheduling the same content, right? America's asking, are you suggesting that we do the SMART practice for 90 days and then again for 1 year? That's what I was trying to do, but maybe creating resistance. Well, fear, she says. No, this is totally up to you. It depends on the goal, right? So it depends on what the goal is. Like, if you're trying to start an entire new business, I don't think 90 days is probably enough time, unless you already have the ball rolling, right? If you're trying to write a whole book, I don't think 90 days is a realistic timeline. especially if you're somebody who's got a 9 to 5, or you're a stay-at-home mom and you've got a bunch of kids around, especially, you know, right now we're on summer holiday specifically, but you may be watching this at a different time, and wondering how this is going to fit into your day. Like, you really have to look at your schedule and decide what kind of time you have. And so I'll give you a good eye-opening example. So several months ago, I don't even remember when this was. I just remember it happening. I remember I was planning out a launch and I was like, okay, well, I've got, 6 weeks to get this done. And I was like, that's lots of time. And I kind of was like, okay, well, I don't need to do anything else today. And then I was like, okay, wait a minute. Is it actually 6 weeks, or what kind of time do I actually have? And I was looking at my calendar and I was taking off, okay, well, my son goes to school from these hours to these hours, which means pick up and drop off for this time. And he's homeschooling now, but at the time he was in school. So, okay, pick up and drop off for this time. And then Fridays he's off at half day, and I don't want to work on the weekends. And then I quickly realized, it was very eye-opening. I quickly realized that 6 weeks was actually, if I broke it down into like the number of hours, it was really only like, I don't know, like 50 hours or something, or 40 hours or something. And I was like, oh, like if I was planning like a perfect case scenario, and I thought, oh my God, like that's not a lot of time. I need to start working like yesterday. Right. And so that was one of the things that drove my realization that I really want to create automated systems in my business rather than relying on launching. But also, it got me thinking about the importance of being realistic about our goals and what the time we give ourselves to do something is, and what kind of pressure we put on ourselves to execute goals, when we could just extend the timeline, right? Or simplify the process. Like, okay, if I want to do a launch in this many weeks, but I really only have this many hours, I don't really have to create a workbook. The workbook takes a lot of time. My last launch, the workbook took the most amount of time. And it's a fantastic workbook and I'm very proud of it. But if going forward, if I didn't have time for that, I could nix the workbook and just say, take notes while we're doing the thing, right? America says, I'm looking at the SMART exercise for stepping stone goals too. Good idea, bad idea. So in 90-day increments. Yeah, totally. Anytime you can incorporate the SMART acronym into your goal setting, the better, right? Because you want everything to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, all of it. So anytime you can break the SMART acronym down into your goals, whether it's this week, this month, 90 days, 1 year, whatever. Yes, definitely. I think it's a good idea. It obviously takes more time to do that, right? It takes more focus to do that. But again, the clearer you can get on the vision and where you're going and by when, the quicker you're going to get there, right? Because it does create a sense of urgency and focus. And when you're focused on what you're doing and by when, and especially if goals build on one another, right? Then it keeps the flow of things going, right? Like I've got several programs that I'm going to be creating in the next little while that have to be created in a certain order for my overall vision to come to life, right? So if I lose motivation or focus or momentum on any of the beginning steps, the whole vision goes to shit, right? So that's why setting SMART goals is so important. America says, I'm also aware that I can get caught up in the planning, which can get into self-sabotage. Yeah, I have definitely caught myself spending more time planning than actually doing. So again, that's why when you break down the goals, you want to put them into like achievable, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, but breaking the projects down into tasks rather than just continuously putting complete workbook on your to-do list. It's okay. No, do the intro, do, the workbook section for module 1, do the workbook section for module 2, et cetera, and so on. Yeah, finding the balance is definitely key. And that's personal. That comes down to each person's own. There's a lot of factors, right? There's your personality, there's the time you have, there's the kinds of goals you have. There's, some people would even take into consideration their human design, which I'm not going to get into at all. But there's a lot of relevant pieces to the puzzle, right? But overall, anytime you can break down a SMART acronym, that SMART acronym into your goals, whether they be for the day, the week, the month, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, whatever, the better. Because not only does it help you, like I said, create that focus, that clarity, that momentum, and that sense of urgency, but as you get really good at setting goals and achieving goals, you also reaffirm to your subconscious mind that the goals you set, you achieve. And then it makes it that much easier to keep it going. So I would even suggest, that being said, that for those of you who are fairly new to goal setting or manifesting, or you've got really big goals that you're really not sure you can achieve, they kind of scare you, and you're worried you're going to fall into self-sabotage, start with setting really small goals that you can celebrate, like really small goals. Because the more you can affirm, and this is why I talk about slowing down to speed up, right? It seems less exciting to manifest, $3,000 than $10,000, but you have to hit 3 before you can hit 10 anyway. So why not make it something to celebrate so that you can affirm to your subconscious mind that what you set your mind to, you can accomplish, right? Okay, so I'm sure you've kind of been doing this already as I've been talking, but I'm gonna give you a few minutes now to create your own SMART goals. Okay, you want to be thinking about specific actions, metrics, and timelines.